already. Welcome to Generation Dan, everybody. The podcast where we've had to clap so many times it's more like applause. I'm Atlas Novak. I'm your millennial. Who else is here with me?
I'm Dino the Genetic Marvel. I've never had the clap.
Neither have I, but I just thought it was a funny line. Our guest today is Brian Seff. How are you, man?
Okay. Yes. Some of the people who recognize, well, I had hair when I was working full time, but I worked under the name of Rick Wright, and that was, which has a long history in itself. But I was, I'm fine with being Brian Seff today.
Oh, shit. Well, because it says Brian Rick in London, and it's like, which one, right?
Yeah. That was it. Well, last week we had a guest whose name was also Brian, so it was good for Stephen to call me Rick, so that we knew who he was talking to.
There you go. Show of scene with a married Alice. I hope he didn't lose his hedge. Listen,
what edge? I never had any edge.
Also factual. Atlas is edgeless. He is a circle.
I am one of those knives that from in like a 20-year-old's apartment where you gotta like fucking do this to get through a piece of fruit.
Are you married, sir?
Yeah, as of last week.
Well, that's right. You were preparing for that just when we had you on. Well, yeah, I'm no one to give advice. I've been divorced 3 times. So
so has my mom and my dad twice now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Me coming up with low numbers of 1 divorce like a loser over here.
Yeah. What's all this happiness shit?
I know.
Yeah. So like my parents are like I'm trying to break the cycle of being a not shitty partner.
I'm trying to break the cycle of happiness, so I'm trying to bring it down real low for me and my wife.
You're married too, huh?
I am. So I have an ex-wife that's floating around telling lies about me. But then the new one is much better. Essentially, as a Greek man,
true. She's awesome.
Yeah, as a Greek man, what I had to do was I had to find a Chinese woman that was born in the UK and then used her to colonize the Greek man. This is the only process that could work. She must be strong and violent all of the time.
And then also showing you some opium because...
Okay. I mean, listen, I run on drugs. That's fair. We all know that. That's a accurate thing. Dino is trying to break the cycle of local stores not selling every Lego set.
Okay.
I also make Lego on my channel, Brian. So
my the last holiday I took, well, actually the last 2 holidays outside of England, where I actually went into other parts of Europe, both times were Greece. I'd never been before. I went there. My girlfriend and I went in May of 2022, and then we went to Crete in October of last year. So,
you see, even the white man goes to Greece and says, "This is paradise, people." That is how it works.
What's the Minotaur up to these days? I feel like I would have joined like a jam band or something. What?
I've actually been to that maze. Like the actual, yeah. It's like, so this is the thing, okay? The weird part about Greece is that it's like, think about it. You hear stories and like, oh, these mythological creatures and everything. You're like, cool. And then you're like, so all those stories we told you about that, they're crazy. Yeah. So this is where it took place. And you're like, huh? Well, I'm sorry, what now? Like,
I mean, stories about the gods and stuff.
Where the gods came down and struck people dead in their shoes. Yeah.
Because Zeus couldn't keep it in his pants. Yeah.
It gets even worse. Like in
Toga, I guess.
It was either 86 or 89. We went on a few cruises through the Mediterranean with that my dad wanted to go. And one of them was like religious stuff. So we ended up going to Ephesus to this tunnel where John the Baptist laid his head. It's covered in gold and shit, right? But at the same time, like, because it's obviously been marketed to high hell by the churches, right? Which, like, that's their job. Now they're just salesmen. But at the same time, like, it's crazy. Like, we were watching a YouTube channel and like, this is the sacred tunnel where John the Baptist laid his head, and everyone, and my wife is like, wow, that's wild. I'm like, I've been in that room. And I was like, what the fuck? And I'm like, I was always just a comedian and fat tub of shit.
God, you remind me of you mentioned going on cruise ships. That was some of the worst work I ever had to do.
Working on a cruise ship. What did you do?
I did my skits and sketches
Oh, okay.
for mostly retirees
Yeah.
who, well, I was on one ship that was cruising across the Atlantic. Took off from Southampton and was going to land at one of the Caribbean islands, and then I'd fly back to London. But so the first day out, the first morning, everybody's seasick because the boat just so
because no one's used to it, right?
Nobody was. I mean, even people that had been on cruise ships many times before, and I felt it, and I didn't actually throw up until mid-afternoon. But by then they'd gotten me some pills. I had at least enough strength to go down to the doctors, downstairs. So fortunately, I didn't have a show that night. The first show was the next night, and I managed to get off one good line to start things. I said, "Oh, nice to see everyone here. You're all standing up instead of leaning over. How nice to see you all." And so it got a mild tee-hee, and from there it just went downhill. My act is musical, and I'm trying to tell them, come on, I know a lot of music. Play, give me requests, and the more the artist sucks, I probably know it even better. So, but someone thought he was being funny and said, "Can you play Far, Far Away?" And I actually knew a song by Slade called Far, Far Away, so I diffused that one. But otherwise, it was just disaster. And the talent coordinator came up to me after, "Rick, could we have a word?" And I said, "Well, I think I know what the word is." And he said, "Yeah, so we're going to cancel the rest of your shows this week. You'll still be paid." But I had to ride on the boat for the next 5 days until it actually crossed the Atlantic and go to the food court, and people would come up and say, "So I saw your act the other night, and I really couldn't figure out what it was you were doing."
So, by the end, you're just hoping to be like Cellophane, Mr. Cellophane, like just don't be noticed. Like,
yes. Well, I found respite they had a library in there, and on one of the tables they had a jigsaw puzzle, and I just a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. I do one of those every 20 years, but I worked diligently on that one. So
I feel like that's a definite life marker where you're like, I had to pull out a jigsaw puzzle and do that for a while just to get my bearings. You're like, that's a definite a notch.
Yeah, at least the jigsaw puzzle wasn't going to make any comments. It wasn't going to try and yet I worked that same ship a year later and got an encore. So
isn't that so I was having that conversation with somebody else about how you can watch somebody headline and just tear the room apart, and then you'll see them working on stuff at just an open mic or whatever, and they just eat all the dicks. Just every dick possible, they are eating it, and you're just like, what happened? You're like, you were funny. What? I've been betrayed.
Well, because they no matter how good you are as a comedian, you're still working on new material is still always going to be fumbling around in the dark. My dad saw Steve Martin in the early 2000s, and it was him working on material, and it was very hit or miss. And every time something just didn't land, you saw him take a piece of paper out of his off the pad that he had on the stool, crumple it up, and throw it off to the side.
Yeah.
And then just move on to the next thing.
I'm surprised he was even doing stand-up in the 2000s, because he pretty much had given it up in the 80s. So that is kind of surprising. But I saw plenty of people of note die on their ass at the Comedy Store for whatever reason.
I can only imagine how much worse that is to die in front of your peers. Just heinously, where you're like, everyone's come here to laugh. Every single person has come here to laugh, and you failed. And you're just like,
Well, I heard a story of Chris Rock the first time he played London, and he didn't go down well. And he just says to the others, "Well, fuck this shit. I make 100,000 a night," and walked off. So,
Yeah.
But then he came back. Oh, he was here about 5 years ago. Just completely sold out for 5 shows at London Palladium, or one of the, maybe it was Albert Hall, but it was one of the big venues.
You said 5 years ago, so this is before the slap even.
Oh, this was like, yeah, this was like in 2000, 2001, something like that.
That is longer than 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's when I first started working here. Was early 2000s. I didn't know I was going to stay here. I was living in LA at the time, but I didn't know until I'm suddenly like, I came here 20,000 in debt, and I had that paid off in 3 years, and that was with traveling back and forth between LA and London.
Damn.
And I was getting working 5 nights a week and getting these occasional corporate gigs where you do a half-hour set and get 1,500 pounds. So, and they didn't care about your TV credits or any of that shit. They just cared about, well, are you funny? Can you entertain? So I passed that test for a while. Then I got too old. After 10 years here, some of them started complaining about he doesn't change enough. I thought, well, shit, every night I get different requests. So and I showed that versatility, but I mean, admittedly, the material that I've got a stand-up set this coming Saturday in London, and it'll be the first time I've worked that room since last summer.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be the swan song. Don't know yet. But we see how things go. Have you always been in Canada, by the way?
Yeah, I've always been in Canada. It's more so I used to be a real person. I was a financial planner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that kind of real person.
Yeah, I was like a real actual human being. It was the worst. It was hands down absolute horrible experience. I highly don't recommend it for anyone wanting to get into banking. First have your heart surgically removed, then half your brain, you might survive. That's just basic advice. But yeah, no, it's then I lost my job in like 2017, and it was just on the back of me losing my father. So I'm like, I don't know what life is anymore. It was a fun experience. Coming up to during the pandemic, I lost 240 pounds. So now I'm like, okay, now I don't lose breath going up the stairs. What can we do for work? And so it's been interesting, to say the least. And I have now I've been to Ohio and I've been to LA. I've seen all sorts of people. I've been to the UK too. It's very exciting.
I haven't been to the UK since I was a tiny child, and would love to go back at some point.
Yeah, I never came here until I actually had work. So, I mean, it was fortunate that Stephen, who you've had on the show, and
Stephen Allen Green. I think this is 2 episodes ago.
He was already over here and working a lot, and he just said, you got to come here, Rick. There's plenty of work. And he pointed me toward an agent who actually could get all the work papers, and he's tight with the immigration people. So
nice.
So that was really good, and he had a lot of American clients, some who've done very well. I mean, at the time when I was first working with him, he had what was the black comedian from New York whose first name was Patrice
O'Neill.
Patrice O'Neill had him. Had Paul Provenza for a while.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So I mean, he was bringing over some very talented people, and then he brought me over too. There was a chain of clubs called Jongleurs that had rooms all over UK, and Jongleurs, which is apparently an old word for like jester.
But also Jongleurs. Are we a strip club? We may be. Come find out. That's their slogan.
Every comedy place is one bad set away from being a strip club. We all know.
Yeah.
That's just factual.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like on the Amanda show. Set dismissed. Bring in the dancing hooters. Like
Immediately.
yeah.
I'm going to be writing a blog sometime this week for my website about 15 years ago today. I was working in South Africa, and there was one night where the comedy show had to follow the dancing girls who were out there topless and entertaining the families, and then their dressing room was adjacent to where I was standing waiting to go on. We pretty much followed the strip show almost immediately.
Right.
And so I'm standing there, and so one of their supervisors comes to me and says, "Excuse me, could you move away? The girls are getting dressed." And I thought, what? They showed their tits to everybody out there, but now they're shy, huh?
That's right. Just not to you, sir.
Yeah, well, if I were Trump, then I could just go in and say, "Well, I own this festival, so therefore, yeah."
That's how the science works, and we know trust the science. That's just just walk in there and start grabbing things. That's also okay. So here, let me ask you, Brian, because that's one of the things that, like, especially in North America, people are very up their own ass about swearing, which is absolutely ridiculous. Like I will regularly have one of my friends or someone other adult shush me for saying fuck because there's a child around, and I'm like, I was telling the kid to fuck off. I don't know where the misunderstanding was, but then whereas in the UK, like Australia, you can call someone a cunt, and while it's aggressive,
yeah,
fine. Yeah,
nobody really cares.
Because in America, they usually reserve calling someone a cunt. It's usually a female, whereas in
everyone's
Britain,
a cunt.
although everyone else, everywhere else, everyone's a cunt.
There, gender neutral before it was cool, people.
It's a more extreme version of what dude is in California. Like everyone's dude, but cunts,
without the punch though. So
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. More extreme, right?
Yeah.
Do you find that as like that is a huge difference in crowd or even how they receive you? Is that the that bar hasn't been lifted, in that people aren't going to be crazy and be like, "Don't say the F word, my virgin ears," whereas you're like, you're an idiot. It's just right?
That definitely was not a problem in Britain, but it was interesting that in Las Vegas, and this goes clear back to an old George Carlin bit where he says, I get fired for saying shit on stage, even though one of the top games there is craps.
Mr. Carlin.
So anyway, yeah, and they still have that, especially about saying the word cunt. That comics have been fired for saying.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
American clubs.
Okay. Yeah.
Particularly Las Vegas or the resort cities, but yeah, at the Comedy Store. Well, I used to have a line when I was working here where I just say, I don't use the C word on stage because I've used it a million times, off stage, having been divorced 3 times, and then I pause, and then I say, my last wife, that was her name for a year. Okay. That's
makes life a lot easier, I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's again what Carlin was saying. There's these 7 words. Oh, stay away, and some of them didn't really belong. Tits was one of those words.
Mm-hmm.
Tits, really?
Tits. Yeah. Back when he first did that bit in the 70s.
Oh,
tits. You couldn't. He said, "Oh, it sounds like a snack food." I mean, new Nabisco tits, and cheese tits, and onion and garlic tits, and tater tits.
Tater tits has a nice ring to it.
Yeah,
and might be the episode title. I don't know. I'll think about it.
I mean, it's a top tier name or a band name. We should start selling band names.
I have that band name list
I mean,
still on my phone, and like I don't know, it goes on for a long time. But
Are they just absurd band names, or
yeah,
or,
just like
Pretty much.
if I hear something in real life and it sounds like it'd be a good band name, it goes in the notes app. So like the first 5: Toxic Swamp Flies, Baby Stroke, Soggy Waffle, Choice Paralysis, Ellipsis Jetpack,
nice?
and it goes on and on like
There were
that.
there were some
Yeah.
great real band names in LA the last few years. I was just noticing all the local freebie papers would have club listings, and there were bands with names like Let's Go Bowling, and Heavy Into Jeff was another one, and there was a folk group, interracial, and they called themselves the Negro Problem.
That's funny.
Yeah,
There's like, or I have the Garth Brooks Depression Hour, Undercover Jim Carrey.
oh yeah,
Um,
and there was Brian Jonestown Massacre. They actually
oh my god!
they actually did quite well, but I
Wow.
think there's some YouTube footage somewhere of them having a fight on stage. So
Wow.
so
That's pretty whack. Having
Yeah.
a fight on
I want
stage.
to fight that fight so bad
So
right
bad.
now.
Now, are they like taking swings at each other, or are they just having like an argument?
But it's an argument that escalates to where
Oh no!
I think the lead singer gets punched by a guitarist or something.
I love it when a lead singer gets punched, though. Like, it's so good because they're always assholes, right? Like, it's.
Oh, yeah. I saw it happen with a band that they got into a fight after they'd finished their set because they didn't like they thought the crowd was shit, and they're really they're really getting into it with each other. And this was early 70s, and one of them's beating the shit out of the lead singer and saying, "Well, I believe in peace and love, but this guy's a fucking asshole." I thought, okay, the 60s are over. Aren't they?
Yeah, that's fair. That's like if you've ever met a lead singer of a band, you get it. That's fine.
Yeah.
So, like they say that 9/11 was the end of the 90s, as like a
Sure.
understanding. Do you think there were moments like that for past decades that you guys have experienced?
All decades have ended, Atlas.
No, I mean like where it's not right on the dot of the new decade.
Well,
like a moment that shatters the previous decade.
I always thought that when John Lennon got assassinated, that was the official end of the 60s. They kept trying to hold on for the next decade or so, but that was 1980.
Yeah.
But there was a lot that John Lennon stood for in that pantheon.
Yeah.
He was never against a good wife beating, though. That's his way. That's
yeah. He was. There's so much stuff about he could be a real asshole.
Yeah. He was kind of a dick. Nothing new. We're gonna stay in bed for a week to protest Vietnam. Like what the fuck was that? That was stupid.
Yes. It's just like. Okay, but you're going to stay in bed, but you're going to have the press in there the whole time. So it's not like you're going to, really do some more consummation of your marriage or anything like that.
Joey's saying the 2000s ended when we pulled out of Iraq and repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Probably.
Yeah. That's probably
or killing Osama, because that was 2011.
Bro, it's been a haze the last 20 years of where we're just standing here going, are we? Is everyone at war? Is everyone at war? Is this a war?
It's amazing how fast. I mean, as you get older, those years. I mean, stuff that it's hard to believe that it's been almost 25 years since I first came over to UK. And I moved here in 2003. I began my move. Part of the problem too was, I don't know if you can see it behind me, but I have. Vinyl records going up to the ceiling.
I was going to say
that. I was like, those are either books or DVDs. That's not. Yeah,
those are 7-inch singles.
Wow, that's pretty nuts.
And they're all over. So
that's a rough move, Brian. That's a rough move.
Yeah, so,
those boxes are like the movers coming. I'm like, you better fucking be careful with those boxes. I will kill you.
they were in San Francisco at the time. I'd actually moved out of LA and moved stuff to San Francisco, and found these movers that just said, "We love moving stuff like this. We hate moving furniture and that the heavy stuff, but this is stuff that's personal, and we take really good care of it." So it cost $3,000, but everything arrived completely, unfazed. There was not a single record cracked or warped or anything, or since it was on a boat, there was no water damage.
Yeah.
So
that's impressive. Like, even for back then, that's a pretty decent deal for moving it over an ocean. Right?
Yeah.
And continent.
Yeah. Okay. And they had to go, Panama Canal and on to, they had to stop in Holland first before coming to, but they delivered them. At the time I was living in Dagenham, Essex, which is about 15 miles east of London, east of central London. And, they brought it to my door, and, it was certainly a big move for I'd just gotten married about 6 months before, to my English wife, which I thought that was going to be the thing that, kind of cements my being in UK. But what actually got me able to stay here for indefinite stay was that I'd been on work permits for 7 years. And they're kind of like, well, that makes you more, if you've been working steadily for 7 years, then you're probably going to continue working here. And I said, yeah, that makes sense. So,
I find it hilarious that you're like, technically having an ex-wife that's English makes you more English, and that you're working regularly. Both solid deals. You're like, that's
And now
logic has won. That's fantastic.
My current girlfriend that I've been with for 8.5 years is Irish, so we're covering the bases.
She hates English just as much. That's fair. That's good. Yeah.
She
not more.
She hates the royal family, that's for sure.
Like any good person does. That's
That's I mean, I root for Harry and Meghan, but they just keep fucking up.
Yeah.
Just so badly.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like, I feel like that's one of those things where we've seen such a huge transition in not so long a period of time, of going from kings and queens to just people that are elected or what have you, but just people in charge, which it's kind of interesting that we got democracy so fast, and then now everyone's just like, well, these are the people in charge, so that's how it's going to be. And you're like, interesting.
I've tried to reason it out as to why these people that pay no taxes and are supported by the people's taxes, why they get such, the luck of the zygote or something. How is it that
that's going on the fucking band name list?
Is it the luck of the zygote? Yeah.
Luck of the zygote. Yeah,
it's a banging name.
All right, but it just amazes me that not only are they loved by people, I mean, people come from all over the world for, like, when William and Kate got married, and they're interviewing these Americans. Oh, I wouldn't have missed this for the world. And I'm you're not invited.
Yeah. you made that very clear in 1775.
Nobody wanted you here, you son of a bitch. That's the best response ever. Yeah.
Hey, you're the one who did the shot heard around the world. You get the fuck out. You.
Yeah. What was that from? Fired the shot heard around the world. Was that from Charge of the Light Brigade or
no? Shot heard around the world was the beginning of the Revolutionary War. So it's like outside Lexington or Concord, the Redcoats and the Revolutionaries are yelling at each other, and someone shoots first, and no one really knows.
Oh, okay.
But Charge of the Light Brigade was the Crimean War in the 1850s.
Oh, that's right. I actually. I run these pub quizzes. I actually asked that as a quiz question, and I forget 90% of the stuff that I write down as questions. But
and also is a banging Iron Maiden song. The Trooper.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've heard of the song. I wouldn't be able to sing it for you.
nobody would. Nobody is Bruce Dickinson. Nobody.
No, he's
Bruce Dickinson is Bruce Dickinson. Like,
Bruce Dickinson is Bruce Dickinson, yes, but
he's
still.
an
But I mean, like,
interesting character too, because apart from being lead singer of Iron Maiden, he's actually pretty mainstream as far as his life. I mean, he's a professional pilot for one thing.
That's right. Doesn't he like fly their plane or something?
I think so. I think but there's quite a few like that. Brian May and Gary Newman, or Gary Newman had the hit Cars in the early 80s. He's a pilot. In fact, I had a picture round for my quiz of people who had John Travolta in that group. People who are licensed pilots, and it was an interesting assortment. So anyway, by the way, I mean, this is always how is it the two of you? Did the two of you know each other on common ground or something, or did you just dream up this show?
We both served in the French Foreign Legion.
Okay.
He says that about everything, though.
So, Brian, this is my go-to response whenever someone asks me a question like that. Yeah. That I have zero reason to not answer, just to be clear, and I will very much answer that. It's more so just to see how the other person will react when I say French Foreign Legion. And they go, huh? Which, Brian, your face was, oh, I'll just go fuck myself. That sounds good. Which I'm like, that is the perfect man response. You're like, oh,
well, because either it doesn't register and they're like, oh, okay. Wait, French Foreign Legion, either that or he doesn't want to talk about it. Got it. Like,
neither one of those for me. It was more like, okay, sarcasm. I like that.
See, that's the difference. Where it's like, the difference between what you are as a man, what I am as a man, and what Brian's generation as a man is Brian's generation will look you straight in the face and go, I don't give a shit if you die, and just walk away. which is peak manhood. That was peak manhood, where they're like, oh no, I'll shoot you. I don't give a shit. Whereas my generation's like, well, you want to go? You want to go? You know what I could do? You know what? Yeah, I could. There's lots of stuff, right? And then your generation is like, oh, right. So it's very much a transition. Anyway, so we both were doing comedy at the beginning of the pandemic with a group that works out of Ohio, which is not really halfway, but kind of halfway. It's past one border for me, past no borders for him.
Past no borders, but across the goddamn country,
Yeah. I only worked Ohio once, so all my road trips. I worked Toronto for a whole week.
Toronto's an incredible place.
It was really fun when I was there. It was 1998 that I worked. A week in Toronto, and then a couple one-nighters in like London.
Yeah.
And
the other London. Yeah.
The other London, yes. And I know we finished up at Niagara Falls, but there was a couple of, I think Windsor was in there.
Windsor, Cambridge, London.
Cities that were close to the U.S. border.
Yeah.
But I was working with this guy, Mark Price, who was a bit of a TV star in the 80s. He was a recurring character on Family Ties. Playing Skippy, so he was milking that, and we also had Emmanuel Lewis, who was the little black kid on the TV show Webster, and it was interesting, because he did not look a bit different. It had been almost 20 years since he'd done Webster, but he's still, he was still like 3'10" or however tall he was, and his voice was still high, but he was a 30-year-old man at the time. So,
yeah, that's got to be a weird thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it wasn't dwarfism or anything like that. It was just a growth thing. But he was lovely to work with, and very, very nice guy, and very patient. People would we'd be having dinner in a restaurant or something, and people just come over and, oh, Webster, you're so cool, man. Can I have your autograph? And he'd talk to him,
Yeah.
and I couldn't imagine myself doing that if I'd gotten famous. I understand why celebrities can be rude sometimes, but you catch them in the right mood, they can be, they'll be normal people.
Yeah. I think that's the one thing that everyone it's important that people realize too, right? Is that we all are all just normal people. Like there's a story that Robert Pattinson had a stalker, and so
I love this
he
story.
he found them and was like, let's go grab food. So he went out and took her on a date, and it was like the most boring of boring dates.
Oh God!
And like
because he shattered the expectations she had of him.
Yeah. No, listen. Okay, let's be honest, right? Like, there's no mystery. Like, what people will go against their principles and stuff for the illusion that they make in their mind, right? So this movie star guy who's all the girls want him and everything. He's like, my life is boring as shit. I wake up in the morning, I eat, I go to set, I work, I come home, I try not to kill myself, start over again after breakfast. It's that simple. And that's the difference, right? And people are like, wait, that's it? You're like, yeah, we're all just people. It's just,
Yeah, I just finished reading. My girlfriend gave it to me as one of the Christmas presents. It was Henry Winkler's autobiography, and he got lucky at a young age and continued to parlay that into various things. But he was still trying to think, but really, it wasn't that good, because there were some times where I went, 7 months without any work, but that was without any work before the cameras. He was still doing plenty of voiceover, and he was writing kids' books, and he's always been busy, and he's always been successful. And to that, I can't take that away from him. He comes off as a very intelligent guy. But if we're supposed to sympathize with him because he might have gone a month or two without any work, when you got 10 million sitting in the bank,
okay, the Fonz is going all right.
And he's shown a lot of versatility over the years. I loved him in Arrested Development. I thought his character was great. And I still remember the first time he was ever on TV. He was in a Mary Tyler Moore episode, and he played this dick, who a friend of Rhoda's, that she brought him to a party because he'd just been fired and he needed some enlightenment, and he kept getting introduced to everybody. Hi, I'm Steve. I just got fired, and just the way he said it was very funny. So, and that was at least 2 years before Happy Days.
Damn.
So,
I mean,
I really liked those Hank Zipser books. Right?
Yeah.
That's him.
That's him. Yeah.
I liked those when I was a kid.
Yeah, I'd never heard of them, but I just
because the whole like spiel is that he has dyslexia, and it's like him trying to, not coming of age, but like he's in elementary, middle school, and it's like trying to, get along and blah blah blah. It's like pre-Diary of a Wimpy Kid sort of spiel.
Okay. But I remember in his book he's talking about being dyslexic before they really knew what it was. And my second wife was very dyslexic, and the school just thought she was dumb, and so they actually left her back a grade.
Oh my God, that's rough.
And eventually she just, at about age 16, she just dropped out of school because she just said, this is bullshit. So
and it is, like, let's be honest, like that's the worst part about it, is that like I remember for me, I can't write worth shit, but I can publicly speak better than most people I know, just because that's the skill I've developed, right? So it's like now I'm trying to work on reading, but I'm like, if somebody took the time in grade school or high school and was like, hey man, you need that as a counterpoint to your speaking ability, I would have been like, oh shit, I gotta need to work on both. Oh, cool. No, nobody says shit. They're like, oh yeah, you need to be able to speak and to read. Oh, well, fuck me.
Yeah, no, my parents had constant conversations with teachers about, well, Brian's just not living up to his potential. It was always those words, because I was getting B's and C's instead of A pluses or whatever. And I wondered if maybe the teachers took umbrage. Why am I not reaching this person? Is it a failure on my count? But in some cases, it was just because I didn't like you.
Or just
100%. Fuck them.
Yeah. Or like I was, I don't know, I was freaking terrible at math, so I always would scrape by with a C- or something, and then I would do better in English and history, and my parents were like, "Okay, so he's got a thing, fine." Like it's just what you're good at.
I want to go on record using this as my platform to inform any and all future teachers. If I didn't learn, it's because you're a shit teacher. Just to be very clear.
Good to know, considering my current day job. Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, I've never looked at it from that Brian's perspective. It's like, yeah, it's because you're a shit teacher. You're a shit teacher.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing, that when you're a kid and your teacher fails you, you see it as like, oh, they just like doing it to me. Like you see him as like Mr. Crocker from the Fairly Odd Parents. But when a teacher has to give a student an F, they're not happy about it.
I am. I hate your life.
Have you had to fail students?
Yeah.
Did they deserve it?
For the most part.
Then who cares? That's their own stupidity.
Well, because like there was one kid who came to class like less than a third of all the days, and they're like, well, how do we get this student to pass? Come to class, maybe.
Get not shit parents.
Yeah,
you'll be fine.
This ain't college. Some college classes you can the professor will be like, all right, here's your final. Just cut like you come in for the midterm and the final, and you do okay on those, and you get through. But like in high school, that's not really how that works.
No.
So,
listen, high school is just grandiose babysitting with people who are capable of murder. That's all.
Well, I always thought it was training you to be normal.
Yeah, kind of.
And
tomato. That's fine. Yeah.
When I was in junior high, we had counseling, career counseling once every week, I guess, and they were presenting these career opportunities, and I when I was 12, 13 years old, I wanted to be a rock and roll star, and
as everyone does.
Of course, they had nothing that even came close to that as a career. The closest they had was actor. So I said, okay, maybe I'd like to be an actor. But our school counselor, when she's talking to my parents, she's saying, he's 12, 13 years old, and he doesn't know what he wants to be when he grows up. And they weren't listening to me. I want to be a rock star, a professional musician. I want to be in a band, and they just didn't register, because it wasn't doctor or lawyer or educator or anything like that. It was, and I pretty much knew when I was a senior in high school that I definitely was going to be in showbiz, because my first class was at 8 a.m, and I'm driving to school and I'm going, oh God, I hate doing this shit. I hate
that. Yeah.
having to get up at 7 a.m. and make this drive. And then I envisioned this little angel on my left shoulder saying, but you'll have to do that every day when you're an adult. And then the devil on the right shoulder said, fuck him. We're going to find a job where you don't have to get up in the morning. And I pretty much knew. I started working in show business about 2 years after high school. I mean, I started working full time with a band, working a club. We had a steady gig. And out of that band came a cabaret act with this woman that was singing with the band. She and I had an act, and that took us pretty far. We were, I think we talked about that when you were on the show. We toured as, gosh, this is going back 45 years. we were the opening act for Robin Williams on his first national tour.
Damn.
And we sang with him. He'd do a little closing thing. He'd bring us back up, and I'd back him on guitar. We had a keyboardist as well, so we'd back him and also sing backing vocals, and he'd sing a few songs. But that eventually got us a guest spot on Mork and Mindy. So, which still, like, every year I get a $6 royalty check. So I don't spend it all in the same place.
At the same time, Brian, how would you have felt if your guidance counselor was like, "Oh, we just got these brochures. How to become a rock and roll star? Just a little 3-page flapper."
I would have loved it.
I mean,
yeah,
that's fair.
But this was, this was when the Beatles had just hit. So, they should have had something.
I mean, yeah.
I
can only imagine how that must have played out. Like, okay, at the same time, Brian, a little bit of fuck you, because that's how every young person is like, that's how I want my life to go. And I'm going to travel and I'm going to do things. And Brian's like, yeah, did all that. It was great. It was awesome. Yeah. And everyone else is like, I don't know if I can leave my 15th city at this point. And you're like, what is it?
Yes. Well, and I did kind of pursue acting. When I got into high school, I took a first-year drama class, and our instructor was clearly a bitter guy who,
didn't make it.
Didn't make it. So he's a teacher, and he's actually saying, okay, even if you're a good actor, if you have these envisionments of your name in lights, get over that right now. Mm-hmm. And that motivated me more. I just thought the day that the name Rick Wright actually showed up on a huge marquee at Caesar's Tahoe, where I'm opening for Jerry Garcia, I wish that I could have somehow sent that to this particular guy and just said, "There's my name in lights. It's not the name I was born with. It's not the one but it is. It is me."
Doesn't matter.
Funny. Like, could have been worse. That guy could have become like a Ben Shapiro type or whatever.
Oh,
we're lucky he just became like a drama teacher who drank during the PDE meetings or something.
Yeah.
Okay, we're doing professional development today. Glug.
I mean, that's probably a lot of years.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah. The next year, he wasn't even teaching drama. He was still at the same high school, but he was teaching government. So it was clearly, he was just
subbing in wherever they had a job opening. He's like, I'll just do whatever. My dreams are done. I said that to the other. Okay, so somebody was like, follow your dreams, and I'm like, my dreams are dead. I'm following that guy's. And someone was like, what the fuck did you just say? And I'm like, oh, my dreams are dead. I'm like, I'm an old man. I'm like, I'm just gonna follow that kid's dreams. This sounds entertaining as shit.
Yeah. How long you been a teacher, by the way?
Just this is my first year.
Oh, okay.
So less than a year.
Oh, he's still looking down the barrel of that gun. That's all right.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess because you're married and you have these responsibilities, you need to have a steady gig so it looks good.
Plus, she's a teacher. Like, the reason I became a teacher was because she told me, you do stand up, you're good at public speaking. Just get your credential, and they need teachers, which I'm pretty sure that's why I got hired, because they're like, we have massive holes in our roster. Please, like.
At the same time, Atlas, I feel like that was one of your dreams. Like, Englishman is here to save the day.
Kind of. It is kind of nice to feel like
worst possible time in history to be Englishman. By the way, let's just be very clear.
I definitely feel like, imagine if you were a wide receiver and they threw you the ball and you just kind of did this and were fumbling with it down the entire field for a touchdown, and they're like, you did it, and you're like, I barely fucking did that. I
think that's life, though. I think that's like, I think a lot of us are under the impression, like, so I'm working on this bit here. I'll tell you guys this bit because I think this between the two of you guys can actually appreciate where I'm going with this. So I'm sure you guys have experienced this. You wake up in the middle of the morning or like morning, whatever, and you write something down quick. Before I forget, I got to write it down. And I just wrote three show titles, which is Dirty Harry, Men in Black, and then Rick and Morty. And essentially it's like every young person thinks they're Dirty Harry, that they're gonna set the law and they're in charge and all that kind of stuff. And then Men in Black is where you're like, I'm at the top of my game, and then some old fucker is like, boom, Statue of Liberty, motherfucker, what are you gonna do? Right? And you're like, what? How? The old fucker did that shit? How come? And then Rick and Morty, where everyone is standing around debating if they're Rick Sanchez or if they're Morty, when I'm like, bro, we're all Jerry. Not one of us.
We're all Jerry.
None of us are Rick. None of us are Morty. We're all Jerry's. Like, there's two popular people in our universe now. That's it. We're all just dorks, right? And I'm like, the difference is you have to be comfortable being the loser, and then the world's your oyster, right?
Yeah, or Bob's your uncle, as they say here.
I mean, that's how it is, right? But that's like, you connect those dots, right? You guys saw that, like the Dirty Harry, Men in Black, Rick and Morty. Those make sense, right?
I haven't seen enough of Rick and Morty to actually know what where the actual connection is, but I can see with the first two definitely.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I gotta work it out, because like, so the whole idea between Rick and Morty is Rick is like super scientist, smartest guy in the universe. His nephew or his grandson is Morty, who's a dipshit and just thinking about life with his wiener, which
he's 14. They all do.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's standard, right? And then in turn, the grandson, so the brother, the son-in-law, is a complete waste of fucking space.
Oh,
and like doesn't have a job, but also doesn't do chores and stuff. He's also kind of an idiot. And I'm like, see, that's the thing is, we're all debating. You're like, am I on the cusp of my great adventure as a 14-year-old youth? Or am I a man who masters the universe with my magic scientific brain? You're like, no, I'm Jerry who can't figure out how to tie my shoes because I'm a fucking dipshit. That's really what life is. And you're going, that's the difference, Atlas, is that everyone, you think other people out here one-handed catching these pass like some magical catch it, do a flip in the air while a sparkle of stars bursts behind them and they land on their toe and they're like, aha, I was born to do such a thing. No. All of us are just going, hot potato. I didn't even order a potato. Why am I getting a potato? You're like, that's just, it's absolutely insane.
There's a little bit of luck that comes in along the way, but
sure.
I mean, Jesus, there's in the showbiz union, SAG-AFTRA, there's only about 10% of all the SAG-AFTRA members that are actually making a living as actors. It's about 10%, and the rest are just freelance. And if a gig comes up, I mean, the thing that always made me crazy about that was that the actors that are making the most money also have completely free health insurance, whereas if you're just a member of the union, you can get health insurance for about $1,000 a year or something like that. But
if you're at the top of your game, don't worry, it's included. You're good.
Yeah. I mean, Harrison Ford just had health insurance since about 1970, I would suppose. Dustin Hoffman even longer, and their grandchildren have health insurance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny how that is, right? Where you're like, oh yeah, you're successful, good. You don't even have to pay for shit once you're successful. They just give it to you. And you're just like,
God, I didn't even have. I had health insurance 1 year in the 90s, and that was because my then wife had been working at the same place long enough that they gave her health insurance, which in turn covered me.
Yeah.
And during that 1 year, I had, something on my back, cancer,
robot arms and like extra teeth. He's like, I got a second layer of teeth because I got insurance now. Yeah, it's fine.
I'm Saber-Tooth Brian.
Yeah.
But that 1 year where I had this operation that would have cost about $3,000, it was all paid for.
That's man.
But I don't have that problem over here, because we have the NHS, which for all its faults, it still mostly works.
Yeah.
It's been under a lot of scrutiny because they keep running it. Well, COVID really socked it to them. They just, you know, a lot of people decided, well, you know what, I'm going to spend the extra money and go private because these people are so completely, you know, loose that they'll leave me waiting in the hospital room for, you know, 10 hours and next to someone who has COVID or something. So,
Oh yeah. Oh, we had the same thing over here because I regularly rub it in Atlas's face in free healthcare. I'm like, yeah, I laugh at you in free healthcare.
And it's like, I want it.
Oh yeah.
Single payer. Let's go. Like,
It's not even see, the ridiculous part about this is that if you leave the United States, okay, just leave the United States. Don't go to the UK, don't go to Canada, go anywhere else in the world that has a university hospital. Okay? So people who are being taught to practice medicine at that place,
okay.
Yes.
and you'll find that your medical care is actually this big. So, in actuality, what you pay for in the States is a gajillion dollars of administration and insurance and blah, 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 which is what they're trying to do at us and what they're doing with the NHS in the UK as well. The difference is that the government puts the bill. So they have an extra step. Instead of just charging you directly, they have, we got to send it to over there and hope our guy's still in charge so we get paid.
Yeah.
Whereas, like if you go like to get stitches somewhere, they're like, it's $1. Like nobody cares. Like it's not like, oh, you're a doc. Like the only time a doctor gets high regard is if he's like, oh, you're a doctor of like internal medicine or like neuroscience. People are like, wow, he's a doctor. If you're like, oh, I'm a GP, people are like, get the fuck out of here, GP. Nobody talks about you, you're a loser. You know, you're like, I have to be a special. Like it's not the same as it once was.
Yeah, no. Since COVID, it's hard to get an actual one-on-one appointment with the doctor. You pretty much you get a phone call, and
yeah,
especially during COVID, if you had anything wrong, you had to pretty much settle it by phone. And you know the doctors did the best they could, but you know,
I'm okay with it. I don't know. Did you have anything go on during the pandemic where you had to call in, Brian? Or
yes, I had a cyst that on the back of my neck that kept growing.
Fair enough.
And I went in and told them what it was, and they said, you know, I had to wait all day, and they kept, you know, coming back and checking my blood pressure every hour or so. Finally, I said, you know, I'm going to be here. Well, could I have some tea maybe? And so, but you know, they did see me the next morning, and I was out. I got in at 8:00 and was out by 11.
No problem.
And then, you know, the thing was gone. So,
which is like ultimately what matters, right? Like, so I have diabetes, which from losing the weight, I've been able to decrease and stuff. So I'm like, it's all going well, but at the same time, like every couple of months, I'm on the phone to my doctor. So I'm like, for me, I found that COVID, I'm like, it was easy. Then I'm like, oh, it's just a phone call. I didn't have to worry about anything. But for other people, oh, Jesus Christ. I'm like, have a new health problem? Oh, I don't recommend that on anyone.
And then I'm epileptic, so it's like I have to keep the medication flowing. Although my new insurance with, like, it's still Kaiser, but it's a different plan. Instead of paying like $200 a month for every refill, bacon.
Nice. So, hey, collective bargaining. It makes the dream work.
Oh yeah. Oh no, the when they did like the first PDE and the union rep was like, if you would like to join, I was like immediately, give me the thing. I want
absolutely.
Give me the sign up thing.
I still think nostalgically of the first time that I had to go to, you know, a neighborhood GP over here, and you know, just because I had like a little lump on my cheek, and I thought, well, let's have a look at it, and they're finished. You know, they gave me some prescriptions, and I'm pulling out my wallet, and they say, oh, you don't have to pay for anything, and I'm going, what? You know, because I was completely, I didn't know the concept, but even if you're visiting UK, you can, because I had many years ago had several different comics, renting out my spare room, that would be coming over here from America, including Chris DiStefano stayed with me for a week and a half, and Lee Camp was there for about 3 weeks, and both of them got sick, and they went to the doctor, and the doctor didn't charge them anything, even though they were visiting. So that's just the way it worked.
Even though there were dirty foreigners there, literally to steal your jobs, no problem.
Yeah, well, that's what they keep saying about this flow of Mexicans that are coming from all over. That they're just a million a year that come in the southern border, and it's all Biden's fault.
Of course. Yeah. Who else could be responsible? No, you know what? It's the hilarious part is that since time immemorial, people were like, hey, I can make a better life for my family over there. I'm going to move there. Has been a thing, people. Don't worry about it. Just calm down. Okay? That's not, hey, my dad was like, I asked my dad, okay, Brian, I was like, why did you pick Canada? Because his options were Australia, United States, or Canada. I was like, why did you pick Canada? He goes, I like the way it sounded. I was like, okay. I go, because there's a big Greek community in Toronto, but there's also a big one in Montreal. So I asked my dad, okay, why did you pick Toronto over Montreal or Vancouver? He's like, it sounded nice. And I'm like, you decided our entire future because they both sounded like nice places? He's like, yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm like, cool. Nice. Thanks. Really appreciate that.
Good thing you liked where you wound up. Yeah.
I mean, it's not horrible, but at the same time, there are times when I'm like, man, it would have been easier being a beggar in Greece, just begging for money on the side of a cliff, than being here in the winter tundra. So,
yeah, I mean, you definitely got it. I've been fortunate. All the times I've been in Canada has been in the autumn, which is the most beautiful time to be there. I mean, those pine trees with the different colors.
It's a beautiful time to be. Like, spring and fall here are just incredible. As soon as you get to summer, you're like, I'll go home, thanks. As soon as you get to winter, you're like, this isn't meant for human beings. This isn't for life. Just absolutely go out. Yeah.
I imagine 3/4 of your year is spent with erect nipples, right?
You'd be correct. Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah, but we're experiencing it's Storm Isha that is sending 80-mile-an-hour winds through.
Jesus.
I mean, they slow down to about 40 once they get to London, but the coastal areas are just getting pounded with rain and wind and stuff, and those things happen. But it's amazing how London just escapes most of that. We'll get trees blown down. That's about it.
Mm-hmm. I imagine that's on purpose to have your capital in the center of the country. William the Conqueror had an idea there.
Yeah. I always loved that story too, that the Battle of Hastings was not fought at Hastings. It was actually fought in a town called Battle.
That one I didn't know. That's a fun one.
Yeah. It's inland. Hastings is a coastal town, but but they named the Battle of Hastings after Battle. So, and I think that town still exists.
Bunch of shenanigans. I love this. This is fantastic. Brian, where can everyone find you?
Where can you find me?
Yes.
I have a website, rickwright.com. That's RICKRIGHT.com. You can read my blogs, and there's a little bit of video, but it's pretty dated. It's from, about 2012, 2010, somewhere around there. And then, there's the episode that I was on Mork and Mindy. That shows up on YouTube. It's called Mork and Mindy Meet Rick and Ruby is the name of the episode.
There you go. Let's get that bad boy up to $7 a year, baby.
Let's see Robin Williams with like skinny coat body. It'll be awesome.
Yeah. I remember talking to Robin once about his problem back then, and he said, this was after he cleaned up his act, but he said, you know, I remember telling my shrink, I don't think I have a problem. I can keep it under 2 grams a day. And you know, he was kidding himself, but you know, he got caught up in the, oh, I'm a superstar, and every, as Billy Crystal said it in that Mr. Saturday Night, which was a terrible movie, but he said, you know, every guy in the audience wants to know you, and every girl in the audience wants to fuck you. Yeah, that's
Beautiful.
success. So,
Mm.
and that was pretty true of poor Robin. He got married right before he got famous, and
Poor bastard.
yeah.
Poor,
So, but yeah, it was. There were three people. Only one of the 3 people that I hung out with a lot that got really, really famous. Only one of them's still alive, and that's Penn Jillette of Penn Teller.
Oh yeah.
But you know, one of the other people that I worked with when I moved to LA was Pee Wee Herman. When he first came up with the concept of the Pee Wee Herman show, and me and my partner, you know, Rick and Ruby, were in the original HBO show, singing a tribute to Sly Stone, which is also on YouTube. So
you really got to send us the links to these. That'll all be in the description / show notes for people.
Yeah,
wondering about all this.
Damn.
Yeah, Pee Wee Herman show, Sly Stone tribute. And our characters' names were Mr. and Mrs. Jelly Donut.
I mean, that's a great name now. Forget about back then.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Do I put that on the band name list, or is that one already taken?
There was another part of that Pee Wee show with this old health movie, and they talked about a character named Mr. Bungle, and there was a band in LA called Mr. Bungle.
I know of Mr. Bungle.
Yeah. I think they're still around, but yes, you know, Pee Wee caught on with a really interesting group of people, you know, and it's a shame that, you know, he's one of those many that the career just came crashing down in one fell swoop, you know. And when I'd be over here and talking about working with Pee Wee Herman, wasn't he the one caught wanking in a theater? Well, he did other things besides that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
once just in the middle of the road. Just
yeah. You know, my wife at the time had a philosophy that, or you know, a theory that probably he pissed off his press agent, and that's why he got caught. Was that press agents know everything about their client, and that, you know, even though Paul was gay, he had a penchant for, he loved porn. He had a big collection of it, and so he, you know, he probably was in a theater, and the press agent said, you know, he might have fucked over his press agent, and they just said, "You want Paul? He's in this theater right now." I only talked to him once about that, you know, after it happened, because he went into hiding for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So, but I remember last time I talked to him, he said, you know, he was on a plane and he was going to talk to the passenger next to him, but then he looked at the passenger's screen and it was a, you know, old news photo, and it showed a picture of Paul's mugshot. So I better not talk to this person.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Oh.
All right. Well, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, at Generation Dan.
Yeah, this has been really fun. You know, I wondered how long we were going to go, but you know, this is
about an hour, roughly.
Yeah, I'm running out of breath, but I got more stories. You know.
Oh, well, we're gonna have you back. Don't worry.
Come on back, definitely. Find me at Atlas Novak, all the places, or my other podcast at Nexus at Night. How's about you?
Yeah, and you do them on Sundays all the time, right?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, that's easy for me. Yeah,
I am Dino, the Genetic Marvel. People, follow me, hit me up. We can be friends. Not that kind of friends. I am married, but hey, I appreciate the pictures anyway.
Pleasure to talk to both of you guys, and pleasure to meet you. Know,
so much fun. I'm just trying to figure out, because we were in the UK back. We went and actually saw Elton John in Manchester. For his final
tour, right?
Yeah. We were originally supposed to go in 2020. And then it got delayed. And then they're like, by the way, it's happening in May. We're like, and we got over there. It was actually really nice. We, my wife, as I said, was born in the UK. So we still have friends and family over there that we get to visit with every time we go. So,
well, let me know next time you're here.
Oh, I honestly, you'll be like, hey, fat boy, leave me alone. That's fine. It's going to happen. So,
okay, cool.
But hey, that is in the future when Generation Dan travels the universe, because that only means
I would kill for that. Well,
well, best of luck in all you do, and we'll hope to see you guys again soon.
Thanks, everyone. You'll find us on the Great Space Coaster sometime. Oh God, that was awful.
It's absolutely horrible. We'll be
Bye.